What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So we're less than 100 days before the midterm elections. We're going to talk about the Senate today, and we're going to take a look at 10 models. 7 out of the 10 models shows Democrats picking up seats. So in most of the models right now, Democrats are set to have a good night in November. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to take a look at the current map first. So the current map is showing Democrats and independents at 47, Republicans at 53. So the first thing that we're going to look at, this is 270 to win. This is based on the consensus. And so these are all the races in the Senate right now. And we can look at some of the different races in Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. Now, some of these, I'm not going to go over. If it's a solid color, I'm not going to go over. So solid red, solid blue, these states, we pretty much can anticipate that they're going to go for a Democrat or a Republican. But as we move to some of these other states, especially the toss-ups, I want to focus on states like Alaska, Michigan, Ohio, Maine. Now, in the consensus, what it's showing us, if we look at the top here, Democrats and independents would be at 47. Republicans would be at 49. Now, Republicans at 49. What's important to note here is if Republicans are at 49, they won't be able to maintain control of the Senate unless they're at 50. Because if they're at 50, the best that Democrats can do is come up to 50. And if it's 50-50, then the tie goes to the vice president, who's a Republican. So Republicans would maintain control of the Senate. But if we're looking at a scenario here where Republicans are at 49, they would still need to gain a seat. And so on this consensus, that's why it's important for us to look at these different toss-ups. What are the possibilities of Republicans winning one of these seats? It's very possible, but Democrats also, it's very possible that Democrats can win all 4 of these seats. And let's look at them. So if we're looking at a seat like Maine, so now that we know Troy Jackson will be running against Susan Collins, latest poll came out, Troy Jackson is ahead of Susan Collins, only by 3 points within that margin of error, but he's still ahead. We're going to have to see what later polls show, because the poll that I'm referring to, this poll was conducted prior to making it official for Troy Jackson. Now, I have to say, when it comes to Maine, Susan Collins seems to find a way to win every time. Okay, even if she's behind in the polls. In 2020, she was behind in the polls by like 5 or 6 points, and she ended up winning by like 8 points. And so just because she's behind in the polls doesn't mean that she can't win. So Troy Jackson, he needs to run those numbers up when it comes to polling. We need to see him in double digits. The same thing that I was saying when Plattner was there. Plattner was up by 8. Plattner was up by 9. I was telling you guys, Plattner needs to get into double digits in order to have a chance of beating Susan Collins. So getting back to our map, yes, Democrats can win in Maine. When it comes to Ohio, you have Sherrod Brown running against Houston. Sherrod Brown is doing pretty good in the polling right now. They're kind of trading polls. So you have Houston winning a poll, Sherrod Brown winning a poll. The good thing about Sherrod Brown is he's won a Senate race before. He knows how to win in Ohio. Houston is an incumbent, but Houston was appointed to the position. This is the first time that he is running for Senate. So we'll have to see if he's able to win. But Democrats do have an advantage here in Ohio as well. Now, when it comes to Michigan, both Michigan and Maine, I should have mentioned, both of these states are considered blue states. Okay, so when it comes to Michigan, Democrats have a chance. The climate is there for them to win, but we have to see who the candidate is going to be. We're going to have a primary coming up early August, and so we'll find out who the candidate is on the Democratic side. The candidate on the Republican side is going to be Rogers, and so we'll have to see how that race plays out. But right now, Democrats do have an advantage in Michigan. Now, when we move to Alaska, this is a little bit trickier because you do have an incumbent. He's won in Alaska before, Sullivan. However, looking at some of the latest polling, it's showing that Peltola has a lead. Now, Peltola is not leading in all of the polls. As a matter of fact, I think the latest poll, because I haven't seen a poll come out in a while in Alaska, but the latest poll did show Sullivan ahead, but within that margin of error, so there's no clear leader. But this is going to be one of those races that we're going to be watching very closely because we don't know exactly how it's going to play out. They do have ranked choice voting, so that will, I won't say complicate things, but that could change things when it comes to Alaska. But Democrats do have a chance of winning, and they would have to win all four states here in order to take back control of the Senate, because that would give them 51. And we haven't talked about Fetterman yet. Fetterman could be a problem for Democrats because Fetterman now is talking more and more about, he's entertaining moving to the Republican Party. So if that is the case, that is going to hurt Democrats. Now, if he becomes an independent and he decides that he's not going to caucus with either side, that's one thing. But if he does want to move to the Republican Party, that's going to be a seat that's lost by Democrats. So Democrats would actually need to net 5 seats in a situation like that. But right now, if we're just looking at the consensus and everything stays the same when it comes to Fetterman, then 51 would be enough for Democrats to take back control of the Senate. Okay, let's move to the next one. And understand this too, even before we go there, the reason why it would be a good night for Democrats, even if they didn't get to the 51 that's needed, if they're gaining seats, that's a good night. For Republicans, on the other hand, in order for Republicans to maintain the seats that they currently have, they would need to win all 4 of these toss-ups. That would give them 53. And that's what they would need to maintain. And so in most of the models that we're looking at here, it's going to be hard for Republicans to maintain where they are right now. So they're most likely going to lose some seats, is what I'm saying. So that's not going to be a good night if they lose seats. Now let's take a look at the Kalshi model. So it's showing us Democrats and independents at 50 and then Republicans at 49. And you have what? You have one toss-up, and that's Ohio. So if Democrats, if they were able to find a way to win in Ohio, then they would take back control of the Senate. Now, let's look at what Kalshi is showing us here, because Kalshi is showing us that Democrats would maintain control of Georgia, maintain control of Michigan, maintain control of New Hampshire. They would win in Maine. They would win in North Carolina. They would win in Alaska. Republicans would win in Texas. Republicans would win in Iowa. And then we'd have that last state there, Ohio, and we'll have to see what would happen in Ohio. And so if we're looking at the forecast coming from Kalshi, this is a good night for Democrats. Even if they only won 50 seats, that's still a good night for them because they will have picked up 3 seats. So let's look at the next model here, Sabato's crystal ball. It's showing Democrats and independents at 47, Republicans at 49. We're looking at, and this is pretty much the same as the consensus here, we're looking at 4 toss-ups. So you have a toss-up in Alaska, toss-up in Ohio, toss-up in Michigan, and then a toss-up in Maine. And so we already went over a similar model, so I'm not going to go over each state, but you guys get the point here. When it comes to Sabato's crystal ball, it's very much like the consensus. Let's look at the Cook political report. Cook political report showing Democrats and independents at 47, Republicans at 49. And look at this, the same model here. That's showing us the same information, the same states as toss-ups. And so Democrats would need to win 4. They need to win all 4 here in order to take back control. Republicans only need to win 1 out of the 4 in order to maintain control. So I want to make a quick pitch here. If you guys are liking the content on my channel, make sure you go over and join my Substack. It's free. And on my Substack, you're going to get articles that are based on some of the videos that I've posted, as well as every video that I post on YouTube, I also post it on Substack, and Substack will send you an email notification so you'll never miss any of my videos. Link is in the description. Okay, next model here is inside elections. You have Democrats and independents at 45, Republicans at 52. And so this model is showing Republicans at 52, so it's showing them they have a better advantage. But Democrats still do have a chance to pick up some seats. They just will not take back control of the Senate in a situation like this. Even if they were to win in Michigan, they were to win in North Carolina, and they were to win in Georgia, which all 3 of these states, if we're looking at it, all 3 of these states, Democrats have the advantage in all of them. Okay, so they would lose, Democrats would lose in a state like Maine. They would lose in a state like Alaska, which these 2 should be, in my opinion, they should be the toss-ups and not North Carolina, Georgia, and Michigan. But nonetheless, that's what they're showing here. So the best that Democrats could do is 48, and Republicans would stay at 52, which would still be a good night for Democrats because Republicans would be under that 53. But if we're looking at the toss-ups and a good night for Republicans, let's say they win 2 out of the 4. If they win 2 out of the 4 toss-ups, that could get them to 54. Or if they win all 3 of the toss-ups, that can get them to 55. And so that would be a big advantage for Republicans. But I'm looking at this model, and I mean, in my opinion, it's an outlier because looking at all the other models, they're showing us something different. And so they're showing us Republicans at 49 for the most part. And this one is showing Republicans at 52, which in my opinion doesn't go with the other models. Now this outlier could be what we see, but looking at all the other models, that would mean all the other models are wrong, and this is the only right one. Okay, let's take a look at Fox. This is the Fox Power Ranking. We talked about this just recently, And Fox News, they were really trying to figure out how to sell this as a win for Republicans, but there's really no way to sell it. I mean, looking at this, you have Democrats and independents at 48. You have Republicans at 48. And then when we look at the toss-ups, you have Iowa as a toss-up, Ohio, Maine, and Alaska. So those are the toss-ups. Now, when it comes to the seats that Democrats need to defend, Georgia, they would win Georgia. They would win Michigan, and they would win New Hampshire. And then they would also flip North Carolina. So that is what Fox is showing us right now. And so in this map, Democrats would need to win 3 out of the 4. They would need to win 3 out of the 4. But let's just look at it this way. Even if Democrats didn't win these toss-ups, let's say they lost all the toss-ups and they all went to Republicans. So we'll put Republicans at 52. This is not a good night, not a great night for Democrats, but they would be able to +1. They would be able to gain a seat in a situation like this. But I think it's more likely that we could see Democrats have a good chance at winning in Maine, also in Alaska. And then when we look at Ohio, I think this is the pathway for Democrats to take back control. Now let's look at the next model, decision desk. And we have Democrats and independents at 47. You have Republicans at 48. And the toss-ups here, they've added Texas to the toss-up. Okay, so you have Alaska, Texas, Ohio, Michigan, and Maine. It's interesting. A lot of the models are showing Michigan as a toss-up. And I think that's mainly because we don't know exactly where that's going yet, because we don't have the candidates, official candidates yet. So once we have those candidates, they'll have a better idea of how that race is going. I still think it leans for Democrats. So putting it as a toss-up, in my opinion, right now it's a little premature, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. But Decision Desk does have Texas as a toss-up. And I would agree Texas should be a toss-up because you have Tallarico versus Paxton, and looking at the polling, it's showing them neck and neck. Looking at the money raised, it's showing Tallarico has an advantage. And looking at the energy coming from the voters in Texas, it looks like they want change. They want Tallarico over Paxton. But this is the first model that is actually showing Texas as a toss-up. Okay, next model here is split ticket. So split ticket is showing Democrats and independents at 49, showing Republicans at 48. And then you have 3 toss-ups here, Alaska, Texas again, and Ohio. Okay, so, and in my opinion, just looking at this model aligns more with the way that I'm thinking, the way I'm thinking that things would go. Because I'm looking at this situation here where Georgia, most likely Democrats are going to be able to defend Georgia. I think they'll be able to defend New Hampshire. I also think that they'll be able to win in Michigan. And when it comes to flipping a seat, North Carolina, I think, is their best option. And then it would be Maine. And then after that, then we would start looking at some of these other states. I think Ohio is good to be a toss-up. I think Texas, as I stated before, I think it's a good toss-up. And then when it comes to Alaska is another good toss-up. So in this scenario, Democrats would need to pick up 2 out of the 3 here. And I think their best possible pickups is going to be Alaska. And then when it comes to Texas and Ohio, I mean, those races are very, very, very close. But if I had to choose one, I would go with experience. Sherrod Brown has won in Ohio before, and so that's why I would go with him. Tallarico has not won a Senate seat before, even though I think this race I think he has a really good shot at winning. But if you go with experience, you would probably go with Ohio. So if Democrats win Ohio and Alaska, that would bring them to 51, and they would be able to take back control of the Senate. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen with Fetterman. So in a situation like this, Democrats really want to win all 3, because if they win all 3, that would give them 52. And if they have 52, then they don't have to worry about what Fetterman wants to do. If Fetterman wants to go ahead and switch parties, then it wouldn't be a big problem for Democrats. Okay, next model here is Almanac of American Politics. It's showing Democrats and independents at 47. This one is actually showing Republicans at 51. Okay, so just looking at this, it's already showing us that Republicans would take back control of the Senate. But let's look at some of the toss-ups here. So they don't have very many toss-ups. You have a toss-up in Michigan. You have a toss-up in Maine, which is really interesting. You have this as a toss-up, Maine, but then Alaska, you don't have Alaska as a toss-up. So you're giving that incumbent advantage there, I guess, for Sullivan. When it comes to some of the other states, even a state like Ohio, it looks like the model is just showing that incumbency advantage for Ohio as well with Houston. And so these are the only two toss-ups. The best that Democrats would be able to do is 49, and so they wouldn't be able to take control of the Senate, and Republicans would maintain control, and Republicans would have a shot at getting back to 53 if they could win in both Michigan and Maine. And the last model we're looking at here is race to the White House. This is showing Democrats and independents at 50, and it's showing Republicans at 47. When we look at this, we have three toss-ups here. We have Alaska, we have Texas, and we have Iowa. And then the rest here, if you're looking at Democrats would be able to defend Georgia, defend Michigan, and defend New Hampshire, and then pick up seats in North Carolina and Maine. And so this map would really favor Democrats because they would be in a scenario where if they win, let's say they win, they only need to win one out of the three, but if they win two out of the three, that would be the best outcome for them. But they have a chance that we talked about winning in Alaska. They also have a chance of winning in Texas. And I think the hardest seat for them to flip is going to be in Iowa, but they could easily flip Texas and Alaska and put them at 52, which would give them control of the Senate without Fetterman. So that's a roundup of all of the different models that are currently out there. Like I said, less than 100 days before the election. So things are going to start heating up, especially when we hit August. That's when we're going to start seeing the candidates back in their home districts because they're pretty much going to be on recess the whole month. And we're going to see, hopefully we'll see some debates and we'll see some more things going on when it comes to these candidates running for office. But now I want to pass it off to you. What do you think about the models? Which model do you agree with the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.